Target 12A, this is the first of the three implementation targets. So Target 12A, support developing countries to strengthen their scientific and technological capacity to move towards more sustainable patterns of consumption and production. Indicator 7B1 or 12A1, so again this is an indicator that's shared with SDG 7. Installed renewable energy generating capacity in developed countries in watts per capita. In 2021, there was a record-breaking installation of 268 watts per capita of renewable energy in developing countries. SDG indicator 7B1 tracks the installation of renewable energy generating capacity in developing countries. In 2021, there was a record-breaking installation of 268 watts per capita of renewable energy capacity, representing a year-on-year growth of 9.8%. However, even with this positive and accelerating growth, developing countries are not on track to meet SDG 7 by 2030. Moreover, the positive global and regional trends hide the fact that the countries that are most in need of support are being left behind, even among developing countries. There are still only 4 developing countries with more than 1,000 watts per capita, and they are the same as last year: Bhutan, the Lao People's Democratic Republic, and Uruguay. While the growth rate in renewable capacity per capita was high for the developing world, at a compound annual growth rate of 9.6% over 2016 to 21, growth was significantly lower for small island developing states at only 8.5%, and the least developing countries at 5.5%. Landlocked developing countries down at 3.8%. This trend is concerning, as it underscores the urgent need for greater support and the investment to ensure that developing countries can meet their renewable energy and development goals and contribute to global efforts to combat climate change. The second of the implementation targets, 12B, develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development impacts for sustainable tourism that create jobs and promote local culture and products. Indicator 12B1, implementation of standard accounting tools to monitor the economic and environmental aspects of tourism sustainability. Re-engagement of monitoring efforts critical to accelerate sustainable development impacts through tourism. Globally, data shows a marked decline in the number of countries having implemented tools to monitor the sustainable development impacts of tourism, called for in Target 12B. While COVID-19 pandemic might have affected relevant statistical operations in 2020 and 2021, it is important for countries to re-engage these efforts to understand whether tourism's contribution, notably in the form of job creation and the promotion of local culture and products, is on the right track. Reliable tourism data based on internationally agreed standards is fundamental to benchmark performance, communicate progress, and ensure that action on the ground is aligned with national and international policy ambitions. The level of a country's implementation of the Tourism Satellite Account, or TSA, and the System of Environmental Economic Account, SEEA, provide a good indication of its capacity to measure the economic and environmental sustainability of tourism. This has been acknowledged in the global effort on measuring the sustainability of tourism, led by the World Tourism Organization in partnership with leading countries, the International Labour Organization, and the United Nations Statistics Division. So we're now on to the last of the implementation indicators for SDG 12. So indicator 12C1, the amount of fossil fuel subsidies, production and consumption per unit of GDP. Calls for phasing out of fossil fuel subsidies continue, but global data shows a resumption of fossil fuel subsidies in 2021 after a brief drop in 2020. There are some interesting graphs at the end of the report there that you can refer to. With fossil fuels recognized as the single largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, it is urgent to remove inefficient subsidies which encourage their production and consumption. As expected, global data shows a recrudescence of fossil fuel subsidies in 2021 after a brief fall in 2020, which was largely caused by a drop in energy prices. Governments spend an estimated $732 billion on subsidies to coal, oil, and gas, as against $375 billion in 2020. This brings us back to the level of 2014. This highlights that phasing out subsidies to fossil fuels still work in progress despite increasing awareness and acknowledgement by the international community of their negative impacts on the transition to a low-carbon economy. Fossil fuel subsidies reduce the competitiveness of alternative, cleaner energy sources. They also represent a huge burden for the public finances of countries still recovering from the impact of the pandemic, diverting precious resources from much-needed green and social investment. This price comes both in the form of direct expense and in lost revenue caused by tax cuts. The cost for national budgets is also likely to be aggravated by the spike in energy prices that was observed in 2022. Data reporting by countries on fossil fuel subsidies as a share of GDP is part of the effort to track global progress on the reform of inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. It is also key to ensure national ownership and credible data to inform the design of fair, effective reforms. Following the publication of a global methodology on the measure of subsidies in the context of the SDGs in 2019, countries are invited to report for the first time at the end of 2022. The country data are still coming in. Technical assistance will continue to be provided to countries to support the building of a global database based on national data, which will be made available on the SDG 12 Hub portal.